this issue of the commutations and the pardons that were announced yesterday. And we're joined right now by Eric Shawn from the Fox News Channel. Eric, how are you today?
Good, great. How's everything?
Hey, great. Thank you very much. So among the names that caught everyone's attention yesterday, obviously Chelsea Manning, or Bradley Manning, former Bradley Manning, and Oscar Lopez-Rivera was probably a name that most Americans hadn't heard, I would guess.
Yeah, I think you're right. He has been a cause celeb for a number of years for the Puerto Rican independence movement. And he has been serving, was sentenced to 55 years in prison. It's called a leader of the FALN. Now, I'm old enough to remember the FALN bombings in the 70s and the 80s here in New York City, and I covered them in the early 80s. There's a Puerto Rican independence group, terrorist group, wanting independence for Puerto Rico, and he was convicted and called one of the leaders of the FALN. And he's been serving the federal prison term, convicted of seditious conspiracy to overthrow the U.S. government. He tried to get out twice, so he's got 70-year prison term. And the President of the United States commuted that, and it is causing outrage from the FALN's victims.
Did I understand you to say that he tried to escape twice? I mean, he hasn't even had good behavior when he's been in there.
Yes, he got 15 more years added on to the original 55-year sentence for trying to escape twice.
You know, I heard, Eric, that there was some pressure on the president when it came to the Manning situation from some activists on the left. Is that kind of where this came from, too?
Well, some think so, yes, because you've got notable people like Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is the creator of the wonderful musical Hamilton, has been supporting this. Desmond Tutu, as well as several members of Congress, Latino members of Congress, the mayor of San Juan. And there have been rallies. 100,000 people signed petitions for this. But I sat down today with Joe Connor. Joe is his father. He was 9 years old when his father, Frank, was in Fraunces Tavern. Fraunces Tavern it's a landmark here in New York near Wall Street. It's where George Washington bid farewell to his troops in 1783. FALN bombed it in 1975. 4 people were killed. Joe's father, Frank, was one of those killed that day. He was only 33 years old, and Joe was outraged. He told me, and this is a quote I think is so important to hear. He says, quote, "The enemies of our country are being rewarded. They are being treated as if they are heroes." He says that it's outrageous and it's disgusting, in his view, that Oscar Lopez-Rivera is going to walk free. He's going to get out of the Terre Haute federal prison on May 17th, walk a free man. And under the laws of our nation, President Trump cannot reverse it. It's a done deal. He's a free man, 34 years, cut off his prison sentence because of what President Obama did.
Yeah, I'm hoping somebody asks him about this in this news conference today. Nobody's gotten to it yet. They did ask a Manning question right off the top. But I wonder.
Yeah, you know what? And I almost guarantee you, I bet it won't be asked. I'm with you. I hope it is. But it's one of these cases where people go, oh, they focus on one. And then the news media, like, who is Oscar? What's his name? Who is he? What did he do? It's incredibly important because the FALN, is branded as a terrorist group that killed Americans, injured police officers. I've covered these over the years, and it should never be forgotten. And Joe has been crusading against terrorism, has been crusading about these decisions, especially with Cuba, because William Morales, who was convicted and called the lead FALN bomb maker, blew his hands off by accident making a bomb. He escaped to Cuba, and he's being protected by the Castros, and there's no extradition to get him back here to the United States to face the charges.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a direct parallel, but when I think of Bill Ayers in the Weather Underground, he's one of the president's early mentors in his political career. Maybe he just didn't see this as that big a deal after 30 years or 40 years.
In Chicago, Lopez's brother, Jose, he called it an historic moment for the Puerto Rican people. It's a moment of reconciliation. But Joe, he's very blunt about this. He says there are no political prisoners in our country. These guys are terrorists. The FALN are terrorists. And, President Clinton offered clemency to more than a dozen back in 1999 when Mrs. Clinton was running for Senate. Lopez-Rivera did not take it, reportedly because he wanted all of his comrades to be released, and they weren't. But he will be getting out a free man, and Joe Connor is very eloquent talking about this impact on our country, saying in his view it's an offense and an insult to the very principles of our democracy and our nation.
Wow, that's strong stuff. Eric Shawn, we'll look for your report on the Fox News channel. Thank you.
We'll be there. Thanks, all right. Take care.
Thank you very much. Wow. Is that not eye-opening?